Tuesday. Welcome to the Women of Vision show here on KCNR. I am Haley Clendenning.
I'm Maurice Brown.
And Sarah Chapin.
Woohoo! She's got really cute blue hair right now, you guys. It's so cute.
I'm very blue.
It's so cute. I know, a lot of hair. But yes, anyways, we are also joined tonight by the lovely Anna Hayes.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. It's so good to see you. We were just talking about how it's been a while since one of our last vision development meetings a while ago. I haven't been able to make it to any of I think there's only actually been one recent one since then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very
so
small
I missed
group.
a ton, but still. It's been too long, dear.
Yes.
And you have a very wonderful spirit. I don't know, you just have this light that you bring to a room, so it's always lovely to be around you.
She does. It's like the angelic vibe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's very nurturing.
And calming.
I just get this I just want to hug her more.
It's probably the way you speak too.
Right?
Well, thank you, ladies. And believe me, I love the hugs and I appreciate them so much.
Heck yes.
More people should do it.
Right? I mean, to each their own in this time, but we're huggers, okay?
Yes.
But Anna, you've done a lot. I actually don't think I realized that you've written books.
Oh, yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. But Anna deals a lot with grief recovery and becoming a better, stronger you. And I am curious, I have a lot of questions. So hold on, let me slow my roll. I was about to just dive right in. How's your Tuesday been, first of all?
Actually fabulous. So I did have to take a nap today, but I've been busy upholstering cushions for my mom's new patio swing and chairs. So I have those are my stress relief is
Nice.
Building and stuff like that. So
How fun.
it is fun.
I need to-
Time with it.
You're gonna have to teach me some things. I need to
Absolutely.
make some covers for cushions. So, but I'm glad that you're having a good Tuesday. Hope everyone out there tuning in is having a great week so far. It's just kind of starting off, but we're almost halfway there already.
Yeah, seems like it.
It goes fast.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully everyone's acclimating a little bit to the heat.
I like the heat.
No.
Seriously, no.
I don't really mind it, but I swear, we just spent the weekend in Monterey, so
Oh,
Nice.
that was really nice.
I bet.
And then coming back to this, I was like, wow, yeah.
I live here.
I do. It's always a little challenging. But yeah, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Definitely want to get a little bit of background. We haven't had the opportunity yet to interview you. So we need to get a wee bit of background about who you are, where you're from, how you got here to Redding,
Yes.
if you're not from Redding.
Yes and no,
Okay.
kind of. I actually was born in the mountains of California, but mostly California. I grew up in my younger years in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I actually moved to Redding when I was in junior high.
Okay.
We moved in with my grandparents, and so that was after my dad died,
Okay.
and so it was needed to be around family. So I was here kind of off and on. I tried other little things throughout there and was here off and on until I joined the Army, and
We both just did the same thing. What?
I don't remember that.
but and swore I'd never come back to Redding. The day I turned 18 was February. I was senior in high school, and I was like, I am so done. So I quit high school. I went down. I took my GED. I joined the Army. And swore I'd never move back here. 30 years later, this is right where I'm back.
Oh my gosh, I love that though. So you were well, first of all, it must have been a little bit of culture shock coming from the Bay Area back up here at that age.
Not
I mean,
really.
no? Okay.
It's because I spent every summer up here.
Okay, so
Between
it was
here with my
very
grandparents and then up in Bernie with my cousins and stuff. I was here every summer, so it was already something that I was used to. I was used to the culture. I loved the lakes. I loved the mountains. But at the time when I was I was working 3 jobs up here as a senior in high school, just trying to make my car payment. So which was only like $120.
Dang, so you were like a busy chick though then.
Yeah. So,
That's amazing. Because see, I think, I only obviously have my own childhood to really reference, but I played sports, so my mom was always like, you get your grades and you do your sports, and then you can worry about working later on.
Mhm.
So you were very much a go-getter. No wonder you were kind of like, school, who needs it? Let's finish this, take a test,
Yeah.
get out.
Yeah.
I mean, have you always been that independent?
Pretty much. Well, and you're asking about family and how I got into grief, and I was 7 years old when my 2-year-old little sister was killed in front of our house down in the Bay Area, and
Oh,
that was
wow.
kind of the start of my journey. And so,
Oh yeah, we got
Younger
back it up
sister?
there.
This is your younger sister?
yes, yes.
No.
She
And you were
was,
7?
I was 7. She was
Oh,
2.
my
My
heart.
other sister was 6. So it was very traumatic. And back then, nobody ever thought to help children through grief. Everybody was working with mom and dad type thing, but nobody thought about us.
Wow.
Who really
And-
have even a harder time processing things like that
Right.
than adults do.
But what we felt is, with mom and dad going through their grief, and this was my stepdad who later adopted me, but he, it was like we felt abandoned. We felt like we no longer had our parents because they were so far into their grief, and so we just started doing our own thing, basically, and both of us ended up in funeral service.
So you kind of raised yourself,
Yeah.
take your,
Wow.
with school and everything and your jobs.
Mhm.
So you just, I was going to ask that, like, who told you to have 3 jobs?
I just, I felt like, and my mom kind of always raised us to be a little bit independent, but when it felt like they weren't there anymore, it became a necessity.
Well, it's amazing what even as children, when you aren't conditioned necessarily to do that, it's almost like that fight or flight syndrome. You know what I mean? You realize that, like, well, you just have to kind of grow up and do things on a different level.
Well,
and that's so early though to have to.
It is, and in some ways it's unfortunate, but in other ways it really helped shape us to, do things, get through things, and manage ourselves.
Well, I feel like some people would also, because that's the positive, I feel, but there's also the other way, which is some people would turn to drugs or like,
That's
bad habits or bad, like, just friends
Right.
that are
Yes.
not good for you.
Rather than dealing, they mask.
I actually even
Situation.
have that in my book because another family member asked me one time, how are you not a complete alcoholic or drug addict with all that you've been through? And I'm like, well, because I just know there's always something good around the corner, and you have to keep looking at that. You have to keep looking at what else is good.
I love that.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful for a 7-year-old to understand though too. You know what I mean? There's adults that don't get that. So
Yeah,
Anyways.
you're definitely born with it. It's innate. It's
Yeah.
in you.
wow. Well, we definitely need to obviously. I can't believe we jumped over that, Missy. We have to get a little bit more of your background then when we come back from the break, because it definitely helps, guide us into who you are and what you've experienced and why you do what you do. So, anyways, we are about to hit our first commercial break, and of course, we want to mention our amazing sponsors who make this show happen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. And remember, everybody, support small businesses, our local businesses. Linda Lingo, financial coach. Linda inspires and guides women to clarity and confidence in their finances. Jessie Baldwin, certified health coach. She offers health coaching services. Her phone number is 530-355-5929. Bargain Books and More located at 836 Butte Street. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6 p.m. She does book trades as well. Everbloom Skincare at 660A Azalea Avenue. Results driven facial, natural acne clinic, botanical based non-toxic skincare.
Yes, Marie's does skincare now.
I'm trying. My skin does not like skincare.
Well, you have to go through the time frame. It's gotta
Yep.
get used to
Yeah.
it.
It's part
I
of the
know.
process.
I'll give it a chance.
I need to call her. I want to treat my sister to a little something. She's
Yeah.
just been so amazing. So anyways, like Marie said, make sure you guys to get out there and support our local small businesses. They need your help right now, especially.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of them that are still open. So
Yeah.
throw on a mask if you need to.
Yes.
Do what you got to do to feel safe.
Right? I love that. Yes.
Mhm.
Don't want to mass support these businesses.
If you don't,
Stop
don't.
complaining.
But yeah, get out there and support small. We will be back here shortly on the Women of Vision show here on KCNR. Welcome back to the show, everybody. The Women of Vision show here on KCNR. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Tuesday so far. It's been a good week.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna prepare to have a tissue for you.
Oh, I just
Sarah?
stopped talking earlier. I was like,
It
turtle.
might be one of those days.
Yeah,
or
no,
interviews.
I didn't think about it. I didn't bring any tissues. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
Oh, there's a
Just let
paper
it.
towel right there.
I'm just gonna let it free flow. Why not? We are sitting down talking with Anna Hayes, who is the author too. I didn't mention that before, of Governing Grief, becoming a better, stronger you with grief recovery. Anyways, if you guys already caught the first segment of the show, we're talking a little bit about her history and where she, how she came to be here back in Reading, and a little bit about what you've been through, which is pretty intense.
Yeah.
So lost a sibling as a youngster, which is challenging to cope with.
Yes.
How did you talked about then going, that obviously helps too. I understand a little bit more of your independence that you were talking about as well.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of talked a bit about you dropping out of school, finishing your GED, going to the military.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll kind of jump back in a little bit there and see how was that experience, first of all?
Things had been so unscheduled, and there was no, after my little sister was killed, there felt like there was no security. So the military offered me some security. I knew what I had to do every day. There was no surprises. There was no chaos.
Is that why you gravitated towards it, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Most definitely. I needed that schedule, that something that said, this is what you're going to do every day, and occasionally we'll have you do something else, but you knew you had to get up at a certain time, you knew you had to go to bed at a certain time, you knew what your duties were, and you were in that space no matter where you were.
Gotcha.
No matter where they sent you. So it was that schedule that I longed for, because until my little sister was killed, we always had that kind of a schedule. After that, I never knew what was happening the next day.
Mm.
And then when my biological father was killed when I was 13, that really set everything off in a whole new and different way, because he and my mom were actually getting back together. She had divorced my stepdad.
Okay.
And, they were working things out, and they were going to be getting back together, and then he was killed. And so it sent my mom into
a tailspin. I
an
can
absolute
imagine.
tailspin, and us girls too. So that's when things got really bad, and we ended up moving up here, and but it still kind of wasn't real, but I found throughout all of this that no matter what, everybody grieves differently. We're all individuals. We have our own individual thoughts and feelings, and we grieve very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So whether, and I know pretty much everybody knows all the stages of grief and everything, but sometimes you'll only feel one of those stages.
I was going to say, it doesn't
Not
mean you hit
really.
them all.
Yeah.
Other times you'll feel them all at the
Mhm.
same time. So, and it's not that the sadness or the hurt ever goes away, because it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. My dad's been gone since 1978. I still get mad at him once in a while for not being here for my grandchildren. Just the thought, what would it be like if they had their grandpa?
Right.
I would actually like to know the stages of grief. I've never heard of it.
Yes.
Mm-mm.
Well,
Enlighten us, my dear.
Yeah.
in my book,
I should just.
I actually,
Yeah,
yes.
I just took a photo of it because I feel like there's a few people that I could gift that to.
Mm-hmm.
But in the book, most people talk about just the 5 stages of grief,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gone on where there's been more added. I prefer to use the 7 stages merely because it's a little more encompassing because the 5 stages of grief were actually written about terminal patients.
Okay.
Okay, the whole thing that came from the 5 stages of grief was written in regards of how terminal patients go through their grieving process.
Okay.
And so a lot of people will push that away and say, well, this has nothing to do with the death of a loved one. Well, yes, it does, because we're still going through that grief. And so with the 7 stages, you've got shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, reflection, and loneliness, the upward turn, acceptance and hope, and reconstruction and working through. And so those last 2, the acceptance and hope, and the reconstruction and working through, that's what I focus on when I work with people. So generally, I won't take on a client until it's been at least a year after a death, because they have to have time to go through all of that, and they're not going to want to work on redefining their lives at that point.
Right.
Very few will want to deal with that in the first year of their grief. The first year is the hardest because there's all the firsts. First holidays without them, maybe a wedding or a birth happened during that time and they weren't there to experience that with you. But they're always there in your heart. They're a part of you. Spirit doesn't die, energy doesn't die, so that's always going to be with you. But you still have to go through those stages of grief. You have to feel those things. You have to have the time to do that. I see people post a lot on social media that there's no time limit on grief. Well, there isn't. Grief is something that's going to be with you forever. It's how you work with it and move through it. You'll never move on, but there are ways of working through it and allowing yourself to continue having a wonderful life, but you still have to take that time to actually grieve. So when my son died, he was killed 10 years ago in a horrible accident, and I was in school. I had gone back to school and I was in college getting my psychology degree. And I beat myself up for months because that day I was working on my final for the neurological psychology of the brain and I had to turn it in by midnight. And something in my heart kept telling me, just stop and take him to the movies. Just spend the day with him. And I put that thought away. And he was bored. The other kids were at friends or my daughter was at work. And I told him, go for a walk. He loved to walk. He would walk or ride his bike or something, 4 or 5 miles a day. And it was the first nice day we'd had it was a week after Christmas.
How old was he?
He was 20. But he also suffered from tuberous sclerosis, which caused autism, Asperger's, seizure disorder, communication difficulty. And so he was considered an adult disabled child. And so I just told him, go for a walk. So he figured he'd go for a walk and spend some of his Christmas money. Well, you had to cross the train tracks where we lived to get into town. And in crossing them back, he went into a massive seizure, didn't get far enough away from the tracks before the train came and sucked him in.
Oh.
So, for years, I knew that my son probably wouldn't live long into his 20s, but I never expected him to get hit by a train. It ended up being kind of a blessing in disguise, because when they did the autopsy, they found that he was actually developing brain cancer throughout his entire brain. So, my thought was he never felt what happened. He never knew what happened. It happened instant, and there was no suffering.
But you didn't realize that till
No.
years later after
Yeah.
you've been beating yourself up.
Exactly. Well, no, it was a few months later, and my thought was, I'm the one that sent him for a walk. This is my fault. So.
Oh man.
Yeah, I would be like that too.
Well, I think And
Most anybody does. Everybody deals with some kind of guilt.
it's so heavy. I wish we didn't have to have commercial breaks right now because
I know.
that's like
I
how
feel
do you
rude.
how do you pause and come back to that? You know what I mean? Goodness gracious, though, woman.
Well, it's heavy, so we need a break.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do need a quick break. So we are going to mention a couple more of our sponsors, and then we will definitely return back to our conversation with Anna.
Thanks, Deborah Mitchell with Oils for Young and Healthy Living. Michelle Lane Coaching is a transformational facilitator of Elevate workshops and retreats for women. Lit from Within, located at 2449 Athens Avenue. They do organic spray tanning, infrared sauna, light therapy, hip hop, Pilates, kids yoga, dance, and the works. Bev Gray with Servita, all fired up at 1796 Churn Creek Road, pottery painting, life casting, board art, clay prints, and infused glass workshops. Master Intuitive Life Coach Dana Grant. Hit her up, you guys. She's on Instagram and Facebook.
Absolutely. We have so many wonderful people that sponsor and help our show come to life. So we really appreciate all of you guys. And
Thank you, ladies.
yes, make sure to go out and support all of your local businesses. This is the Women of Vision show here on KCNR. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Women of Vision show here on KCNR. And we, it is a heavy conversation that we're having. But I have to say I'm very grateful and thankful that we're having this conversation because I feel like due to the heaviness of the topic, it's something that is not normally discussed.
That's very true.
People shy away from discussing grief and loss, and everybody wants to. I mean, I'm guilty of it too, oh, I'm so positive. It's rainbows and kittens, and
Right.
that's great, and it is. But at the same time, I think it is very important to honor all of the spectrum of feelings
Yes.
in our life, and they're inevitable.
Mhm.
So thank you, Anna. By the way, this is Anna Hayes, author of Governing Grief, and we're just discussing that and loss, and how do you move through the stages of grief and loss to continue to still live a fulfilling life and not get stuck in those patterns.
It takes work. It takes work. It's not something that just happens. One thing that I really didn't, just a quick thing, about 4 months after my son was killed, my husband was diagnosed with terminal disease, and he died 5 years after my son. So he's been gone 5 years now. That's why I came back to Reading. I needed my family. When my husband was diagnosed, it's like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go home.
Yeah.
And we had buried my son here in Reading in the family plot. So because I knew we weren't going to stay where we were, we were actually planning on moving back to Arizona. So, but it's like I needed my family. I needed to be the only place I considered home.
Right.
Because we moved around so much that Reading was like my
Kind of like your home base, like
Yeah,
the
home base,
where you can
because
come back to.
I could always
and keep-
be back here with Grandma. Of course, my grandparents had both passed away by that time, so it was weird coming home and not having them here. My son's buried right next to both of them, and I actually ended up getting a job at the funeral home where he's buried, so that's what I came back home to. Both my sister and I ended up in funeral service because, and especially with my dad's funeral, I was really angry about what was done, not just to him, but how the family was treated. And I swore that one day I was going to make that right. I didn't think about getting in funeral service. That actually came quite accidentally.
Okay, I was gonna say, is that something that you had been had done before, or
no?
Okay.
Actually, my sister started it. She was doing full-time daycare. She ran a full-time daycare,
Oh, bless her heart.
and she had 3 of her own children. I had 2, and they were all babies at the time. But she decided she wanted to go back to school, and she was actually taking pre-med. But she was scared. She was so afraid that she would actually hurt somebody, by accident. And Actually, I didn't have my daughter yet. My son was 7 months old, and that's when Little Mermaid came out. We loaded all the kids in the back of my Jeep and went to the drive-in.
Yes.
I love
My
that.
God, she had a Jeep and they went to the drive-in.
Yes.
Lady after my own heart.
So I had this big Jeep Cherokee, and we just loaded up baby stuff and opened up the back and watching Little Mermaid. Well, when the chef is chasing around the little crab and he says, I stuff you with bread, it don't hurt because you're dead. My sister stopped. She goes, that's it. I don't have to be a doctor, because I'm afraid I might do something wrong and hurt somebody, but I can help people with their funerals and I can't hurt anybody. So she changed her major and ended up becoming basically the top embalming restorative artist on the West Coast, and she runs her own business.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
And works funeral homes throughout the West Coast. And so I had just gotten laid off from my job. I was looking for work. They did the big corporate downsizing. I lost my management position, couldn't find work. And she's like, well, I can offer you doing, some work, being on call at night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And so next thing you knew, I actually started selling funeral insurance because I felt it was really important. I became an insurance agent. I thought it was so important for people to pre-plan their funerals because it made it so much easier on the families. It made it so much easier. And I had pre-planned my funeral when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Some little girl came knocking at my door and said, hey, I'm selling funeral policies. I'm like, girl, have a seat.
Oh my God.
The way my family goes.
Yeah.
Because my dad, 5 months before he died, his mother had an aneurysm and died at 53 years old. Then my dad was killed in a skydiving accident 5 months later. 3 years to the day that my grandmother passed away, my dad's youngest brother, who was only 21 at the time, I was 16, was killed in a car accident. And then the middle brother died the month that I got pregnant with my daughter. So
no wonder you were like, sure,
yeah,
let's talk about this.
And
Jeez Louise.
So I had her come in. I pre-planned my whole funeral. And I thought, because at the time I worked at a nuclear generating station in the radiation department.
God,
Yeah.
like the
You never
most
know.
colorful
I could actually
history.
assert to that because my grandma, she recently passed. She pre-planned her whole thing like 20 years ago, and the family's huge, and it just made it so much easier.
It does.
And it was such a peaceful thing because no one was like,
Fighting
fighting over whatever.
Or
She
worrying
already-
about the costs or figuring out how
Right.
you're going to pay
Yeah.
for this or what do you do with that. Because
Exactly.
it is, I mean,
And the burial too, like she did everything.
Yes.
And
No, it
she
is
was
very
like
important.
placed herself next to her husband.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh my gosh,
Right.
Grandma, we love you.
yeah, my
Still,
mom,
in your death.
my mom is kind of
Thank you,
like,
everyone.
now she's going to be the first of us that's kind of gotten her ducks in a row, as you would say.
Nice.
Because we've dealt with a lot of loss too, as far as
Right.
my uncle, her brother, my grandfather, my grandmother, all in a pretty,
Short amount of
close
time.
period of time, and
That's
no
hard.
one was really particularly prepared.
Right.
So that's a lot of pressure to put on your family,
It is. It is.
to deal with.
Well, not only does it allow you to actually put down your wishes, this is what I want. So there's no fighting, there's no arguing. It is a legal binding contract
Right.
that the funeral home needs to abide by. But it's easier on the funeral director too. So, because as a funeral director and, sitting with the families, sometimes you're dealing with a lot of anger.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
dealing with extreme sadness, depression, hurt, pain. And
It's a confusing
it
time.
is. And, oftentimes it's scary and it's sad, but families will fight right there, and you have to ask one to leave so you can, and then it's horrible. But it happens. It happens.
Sarah's like, I can.
My younger sister passed away like at 26 last year because of a car accident while I was in Europe, and I was her power of attorney, and she of course already had a will because we're just kind of nerds that have everything prepared already, and yeah, like it's helpful to have that stuff because having like legal will and everything stuff, my parents tried to fight me and do an open casket funeral because we're from the South, and I was like, no, she wants to be cremated
Right.
and have a memorial service, and like it like went to court, like it was a thing, and
my
like
goodness.
it's really important to have stuff prepared because that's what backed me up in the end and got to
Yes.
do what she wanted. So
Well, and it's about fulfilling their
Yeah.
wishes.
Mhm.
Exactly.
especially when you're young, you don't think about that. You don't think like, oh, this could be me.
Oh,
You
yeah.
think long life, so it's very important, especially at a young age, to get that stuff
Mhm.
in.
Yeah.
You want that.
So that's how I started out in funeral. I started doing removals at night, part
Okay.
time. Got my life insurance license, started selling funerals, and then when that wasn't, they changed the program on that, and I wasn't making enough money to live off of.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a funeral director and then a manager. But
Well, I hate to, we're going to have to do like a whole nother interview because we're already coming up again in a couple minutes
Yeah,
on
we
next
haven't
break.
talked about our
And I was going to
books.
say we need to get to where we're at today and what it is, the amazing work that you're doing today with people because quite frankly, I was saying it's not a fun topic.
no,
It's not something that people really want to deal with or accept or really probably work with people with either. I feel like it's
Yeah, like they
something
won't
that we
reach out.
internalize a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Or feel like we should be dealing with it on our own
right?
when that's probably one of the topics that you need the most help
Yes.
to deal with.
And I'm guilty of that myself, of holding my feelings inside because I didn't want my family to hurt, by me talking to them about how I felt.
right. So you always put on a brave face,
Exactly.
just kind of be the tough one for everybody else.
Mhm.
Because if you lose your, you know what, then everybody else is gonna too. Then right.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, we before we even get on that topic because we are creeping up, and I don't want to cut you off at all. We're just gonna go ahead and mention the rest of our sponsors
Yeah.
before we hit our next commercial break, so that we can talk a little bit more about what it is that you're doing now, so that we can help some people here.
Absolutely.
We have a few more ladies. Thank you. Our ladies from Reliefs Trading. It's 100% US-based certified organic hemp grown at Whole Circle Farms in Oregon, USA. Their signature product is a Reliefs Deep Freeze. It's pain relief spray in small batches, lovingly crafted to bring you the relief you need. Max Malari with World Financial Group, life and health insurance agent.
Apparently, we should be hitting him up
Mhm.
Oh yeah, him and his mom are amazing.
as well. And we're talking
Yeah.
about life insurance and getting your ducks in a row.
That's another part. Boheme Salon and Spa located at 961 Dana Drive, Suite 130. And last but not least, Sarah Marie Spectrum, our resident unicorn. She helps you find the magic in you through her creative photography and videography. Any promotions coming up, Sarah? We just did our photos last weekend.
I know
Not
she's
really
been a
right
busy
now.
girl.
I'm really excited for Halloween. I mean, hopefully we could have that, but
Do you do newborn photos?
yes. And I do like all sorts of fun stuff for Halloween, so.
And did
She
you
does everything.
well, she's gonna do the maternity for you, right?
know,
I
that's
can't wait to
right.
see it.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, so a lot of projects coming around. She's quite busy, actually. I'm
She'll
glad
make
I got.
time for you.
Yeah, I'm glad I got her
Hit her up.
for a little bit there.
But anyways, yes, thank you to all of our sponsors, and we will be back here shortly on the Women of Vision show here on KCNR. Welcome back, you guys, to the Women of Vision show here on KCNR. We are broaching, actually, this is odd to say a lovely topic, but it kind of is because we all got to deal with it.
It's refreshing.
We were talking with Anna Hayes, who is the author of Governing Grief. And she's also, I mean, would you call yourself a grief counselor or
coach?
Grief coach.
Coach.
I like that better.
Yes. I'm not a counselor, and the reason why is because a counselor basically gives you direction and lets you go. Counselor's great in certain respects. A coach is on your back. This is what you need to do. And it's more of a interpersonal relationship than a counselor.
Yeah.
Counselor sounds very academic.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot more clinical, I feel, So, but we are just discussing kind of a little bit about your path to where you got to where you're at, which obviously has prepared you for your current career, which is helping people deal with grief. Because you sure have gone through a lot, my dear.
Well,
more than your fair share, I think.
I agree. I agree completely. But you know what? It's like I said before, I feel like God put me on this path because something not personally experienced, it's hard to understand someone else's feelings. You can't really get a good idea of how to help someone unless you have experienced yourself.
Right? It's hard to be
yourself.
relatable.
It is. You know, you can be compassionate, but you still don't really understand. But that's true even in this case. Another mother lost her son the same way 2 years before mine, within like a couple of blocks of each other.
Oh my.
And you know, I can't compare my feelings to her feelings.
Right.
I mean, he was her only child. She had no other children.
Oh.
I had other children at home. I also had a husband, and she didn't. You know, she was single. The boys were the same age. It was a
That's
freaky
odd.
thing. It was like 3 in a row that happened like that. And I talked to these other 2 mothers, and I thought, you know, I can't compare my feelings to you. I know what I feel. But my relationship with my son was different than your relationship with your son and your relationship with your son. So, you know, there's thoughts and feelings there. You still can't compare. Even though we can relate with each other better than someone who has never lost a child, we still can't compare.
Right.
Because everybody's, like I said, everybody's an individual. Everybody grieves differently.
Yeah. Do you have, go ahead, Maurice.
Oh, I'm just saying, plus at our level of maturity and personal development, spirituality,
Absolutely.
just you don't know where every person's at.
That's right.
I was going to ask, is there certain criteria, sounds like such a strict word to say, but like, how do you choose people that you take on? I know you had mentioned earlier that they have to at least have been within a year of their grieving process to kind of go through some of the steps and feel some of the feels.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you look for, or any clients that you've turned away?
Actually,
other than
yes.
that? Okay.
I've learned being in funeral service. I mean, I'm a Christian, but being in funeral service, I had to learn just about every kind of religion and culture that lives here in California. And I didn't work just in California. I worked in states all throughout the United States. I did 5 states at once on the East Coast. One time, setting up a new aftercare program. So, but I don't like working with someone who has absolutely no faith whatsoever. And the reason for that is because they have no hope. There is nothing you can help them with, because without any kind of faith, they have nothing. They have nothing.
No anchor,
nothing to look forward to. You know, we're taught in just about every religion, and like I said, I've studied a ton of them, but in just about every single religion, there's a teaching that there's an afterlife and there's a better place that we go. So basically, if someone tells me, well, I don't believe, then I can't work with you, because nothing I'm going to say is going to help you.
Right.
Because my teachings, my thoughts, my experiences, they're all faith-based.
Well, it's beyond your scope too. Then you
Yes.
could just refer them to somebody who is specialized on that.
Exactly. And I do have some people that I refer people to. I also, and I know this sounds sexist, but it's not, I won't work with men.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because in that grief process, men tend to cling and turn the professional relationship into something that it shouldn't be. And I've had quite a few men that I've talked to. I mean, we've talked, but they've all come back and told me, yes, their feelings were turning to that because of my compassion, but my compassion wasn't meant to be, you know, their anchor of intimacy.
Right.
So I don't work with men. I am actually talking, you know, I do have a couple of gentlemen that, you know, if someone is really looking for someone, then I can direct them in. But I do take people based on an interview.
Okay.
And if I don't feel that we're going to work well together, then I'll refer them out. Because I don't want someone coming to me and me not being able to help them just because they're not clicking with me. You know, and that's the good thing about being a coach as opposed to a counselor, because a counselor has to take anybody that comes in the door.
That's a very good point. I didn't think about that.
And so that's, you know, I work with people on their individual levels. It's just been recently in the last year, and Sarah was part of my little promo program but I'm having a hard time actually putting a full program together to where I could help more people at a lesser cost, because the grief is so individual.
It is.
Yes.
It's not a pretty little package that
No.
you can group, like, here's these 5 people that are feeling this particular way, I can work with them, and then there's these 5 over here that it is very unique.
You know, just doing that little promo thing that Sarah was part of, you know, and I had maybe 10 women, you know, I wanted to keep it small so I could really gauge what was going on, and they were all from, you know, different age groups, different backgrounds, you know, each one of them had a very different story. And I think Sarah was the only one in there that had a recent family death.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, it had been a while. So there was very little, let's see, it was hard to gauge where everybody was coming from. But that's why I wanted to do that little promo, is to see how I could schedule it. So I'm working with a business coach now, and we're working on how to work that out with doing a basic guideline with videos and workbooks, but also having, you know, just like weekly sessions, which I used to run the bereaved parents group here in Reading, until my husband got too sick and I had to leave, and then I got injured, had to have surgeries. Then I was taking care of my grandkids. Now I'm taking care of my mom. So it's like, it's a constant thing, but I find that when I keep busy, that it just makes me happier. When I'm helping somebody, that's what helps me. And that's why I love doing what I do, because even though I can't work in funeral service anymore just because of my injuries, I miss working with the families. I really miss working with the families. I've got so many letters and cards, and I've kept them all over the years. I even have a couple of people that I did funeral services for, a family member that was like 20 years ago, and we're still friends, we still talk. So that's important to me. It's important to me to be able to build that kind of relationship. And also, you know, if I see a client walking down the street, I can walk up and say hi and give them a hug. As a counselor, I wouldn't be able to, wouldn't be allowed to do that. And although I keep a level of confidentiality, I can still go and say, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? And they can introduce me to their friends or family. Hey, this is my friend. They don't have to say I'm their coach. They don't have to say I'm helping them through their grief. They can just say, hey, this is my friend Anna. But I can still approach them as a coach. And that helps build a trust that you lose in grief. You tend to lose trust in grief. You lose trust in your own feelings. You lose trust with friends and family because of, you know, issues in regard to estate or wishes or whatever.
And I'm sure even with your faith,
Yeah, absolutely.
It stirs you up.
Yes, it does. So those are a lot of the things that I work on. And the number one thing is building that trust, validating their feelings, no matter what kind of feelings they're having. It's their feelings and it's valid.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing right there, is validating their feelings and putting them on that journey of trust.
Well, you're definitely in the right business to help people, because you are so kind and caring, and
Thank you.
you're very compassionate. So anyways, we are about to wrap it up here, my dear. We need to know where we can find you, all of your information, and also, do you have any upcoming events? I know you have some personal stuff going on, so maybe not, but we do need to know where to find you on your website or your book, please.
Yes.
Really quick.
The website's very simple. It's annahayes.life.
Okay.
And there's a reason why I picked the life part, because I work more in building their lives, rebuilding their lives, and redefining, you know, their work. So it's annahayes.life. It's HAYES. My books are on there. I've got, I just put out a new booklet that's on there to help with funeral services and estate planning and stuff. So that's on there as well now.
Right.
And my numbers and everything. I am not taking new clients at this time because I am scheduled for surgery. So I probably won't take new clients until after the first of the year.
Well, definitely get out and get that book, you guys, and hit her up after the fact.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank you,
us
Anna.
tonight.
Thank you, ladies. I love being here.
We are
Women of Vision.